Good morning. Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir, CICC licensed immigration consultant and all that. Welcome again. I'm not going to say that this is exciting. It's always exciting to be online, of course, and to look at all the different things that are happening. But with the way things are going on right now, the mood is not all that vibrant. The mood is not all that exciting. But at the same point of time, it's very important to have these discussions so that everybody is aware, everybody is up to date, everybody is doing what they need to do to sort of course correct if needed, etc., etc. So what I'm talking about is that not only is express entry not as exciting as it used to be because the draws are extremely high, the scores are very high. The category based draws are also not exciting because for a lot of you who are waiting anxiously for STEM category draw or any other for that matter, transport or trades, they're not happening as frequently as you would want them to happen. Canadian experience class, you guys are happy that the draws are happening, but not very excited with with the way scores are not dropping. Federal skilled worker guys are not excited at all because suddenly the general category draws have stopped and therefore those are not happening. Every time a draw happens, the people whose scores are 1 point, 2 points below the cutoff, they are not happy because they got left out. People who are waiting for Saskatchewan are not happy because Saskatchewan is suddenly not conducting draws. OINP because tech draws are not happening or healthcare draws are not happening that often. Alberta because all kinds of changes are happening and suddenly now they have adopted to the new EOI system. Prince Edward Islands, there is some sort of a strike still in some form or shape going on because of the changes that happened earlier this year. Yukon has stopped, Northwest Territories has stopped. As I said, Alberta is taking a new shape. Nova Scotia brought out restrictions with certain occupations. Overall, the scene is quite depressing, to be very honest. And though I am forever hopeful and I continue to be like that, I have to be realistic and say that this is looking a bit more tepid than you would have wanted it to be. But then that is immigration. This is what Canada has done, right? As of right now, also, if you count the different number of countries out there which are inviting immigrants, Canada still tends to be on the number one position. Australia extremely difficult to get through. New Zealand extremely difficult to get through. UK, I'm not even sure how many people want to go there yet, but of course people want to go there, but I'm not sure what's happening there at this point of time. Denmark, Finland, though we talk about it off and on, but I don't see much happening over there. Of course, Germany, France has also now come up with some programs. Smaller numbers, lots of restrictions there, but again, if language is not a barrier for you, then those are the options there. US continues to be the most desirable country in terms of immigration, but extremely restrictive, so it's not even worth talking. And therefore, Canada still happens to be number one. They still happen to be right on top of this list of countries where you can immigrate, where it's desirable, where Canadian dream in some form or shape is still alive and kicking. And therefore, regardless of all the negativity that is surrounding us, right? I mean, right now, we've been seeing all this, whether it's on the social media platforms, so much of anti-immigration sentiments, right? And so many people saying Canada is not worth it, let's go back home, or I'm going back home, or you go back home, or don't come to Canada, etc. You see all of that. But do you see the demand diminishing? No, right? I mean, at least I don't. And yeah, okay, I'm a consultant, and yes, this is my business, and yes, I would say that. But then you are watching this live stream, and if you are not interested in Canadian immigration, why are you even here, right? So therefore, that is again a testament of the fact that the interest still is extremely high, but the demand and supply is now creating a big gap or a big inequation. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years that the PR is becoming difficult. PR is becoming difficult. People first said I'm trying to fear monger, but then this is it. This is in front of you now. And even today, there are now more than 3 million people in Canada who are temporary residents in the shape of students, foreign workers, temporary foreign workers, open work permit holders, Canadian experience class, International Experience Canada, the working holiday work permit holders, And of course, you have visitors, and then you have asylum seekers, or people who have filed for asylum because they are not getting anything else. And of course, then there are undocumented and illegals, if you want to call them. The combination of this entire population of people who are not permanent residents or citizens, some people have made a guesstimate, because the government numbers are never going to be accurate, right? You will not expect them to be absolutely accurate. I don't even think they're tracking the correct number. So those numbers are in the range of about, and you'll be shocked, in the range of 4 to 5 million people who are not permanent residents or citizens who are in Canada. Those numbers. So I'm taking the whole gamut of all that people out there. So approximately 4 to 5 million people. That's the number that's being looked at, and huge number. And then we have a problem with the housing crisis, the cost of inflation, mortgage, insurance. Yeah, as you can see, I did not wake up from the right side of the bed, but we got to talk about all these things because this is what makes it spicy and interesting, so that we know what's happening, we know what to expect. And therefore, with that, let's talk about the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Let's see what's there, what's happening on the horizon. PNP draws are happening regardless of the fact that there are some changes on the horizon, so they are still happening. August 20th, British Columbia invited 156 candidates. So now, as you will see, the number of candidates have reduced. And when the number of invitations have reduced, the number of candidates being invited have been reduced, the scores are bound to go up. Look at that. Require a score of 130. That is, oof. And again, semi-skilled required a score of 110. In most cases, most of the people out there, they have a score of between 80 to 90, 80 to 95 actually, and in most cases 95. But the people who are actually being invited with those lower scores are, for example, EC, childcare, score of 85. Now, you know what happened a few months back? If you go back and see any of my older videos where we were talking about draws, British Columbia, BCPNP, the ECE, the early childhood educator, the scores was always 60. That is the lowest you could get to, right? And 60 meant that everybody saw that as a pathway. People started completing their ECE programs very quickly. 3 months, 6 months program. Actually, there were some fraudulent programs out there as well, where they would just give you a certificate saying you've done it, and people would get a job or get a job offer, and therefore more and more people started getting in, and hence you see a score of now 85 with only 38 invitations. Then there are 20 invitations to the candidates in construction occupations, score of 89, again very high. 15 for the healthcare occupations and a score of 99. As you can see, scores are really, really high. Now, Prince Edward Islands, as I said, the strike by the international students and foreign workers there in some form still continues. None of their demands have been met. But there has been a small change. So what is the change here is that they have invited 57 candidates through the labor market, through the labor and express entry streams of Prince Edward Islands. But what they have done is they have given priority to those candidates whose work permits were expiring in 2024. So that is the only change. Earlier, there was no priority. Whether your work permit was expiring this year or the next year, if you have the score, if you have created your expression of interest, you would get invited, provided your score is high enough. Now the priority is for the occupations, and the priority is for people whose work permits are expiring in 2024. So that is one change that has come out of those protests, if you want to call them. Ontario on the 22nd of August conducted a draw under the express entry skilled trade draw. Now the skilled trade, now this is where you have to sort of take this into perspective. Until a year back, or maybe 14 months back, until a year back approximately, the score for the express entry skilled trade draw would drop down to 250. Ridiculously low CRS score of 250. And now it's at 400, right? In a span of about a year plus 14, 16 months. But not a lot of time, but look at the scores. So at 250, it was a walk in the park, as you can imagine. And this was applicable to those, or rather, this was a favorite program of those international students who were coming to Canada after completing the 12th standard. So first of all, big mistake, coming to Canada after the 12th standard. But I guess at that point of time, it was not a big mistake because it used to work. You come to Canada after your 12th standard, you complete your 2-year diploma in Canada, you get your IELTS of CLB 7, you get a job offer, you get a Canadian work experience, and you had the opportunity, whether through a PNP or through a skilled trade stream, to get through. So this was a realistic option, and that's what's happening. But look at it now, it's at 400. 400 to 435, that's what the express entry trade category happened. And this was also after having issued 1,287 invitations. Not a small number by any chance. But again, in this draw also, some occupations were left out. For example, I think welders were left out again this time. Why do they do that? I don't know. That is again, of course, as per the labor market priorities, and final decision prerogative remains with the discretion remains with the province, of course. Quebec has retroactively published their results of a draw that was on August of 8. Obviously, we do not know of the draws until they publish it. 1,415 candidates invited, score of 576, required a CLB 7, level 7 in French, and that is what got you there, right? So if you can score CLB 7 in French, Quebec, you could go through the Francophone program as well. That's what IRCC is at least encouraging. But yeah. Okay, out of status construction workers in the GTA. Now this is for people who are out of status. But again, you have to go into the depth of this program. It's just not for anybody who's out of status but working in construction industry. This was primarily for people who had an LMIA or who were on a closed work permit. And these were the people who went out of status. And applicants do not need to have authorization to work in construction in the GTA to apply. They have fallen out of status and they are now being given a chance, an opportunity to apply for a pathway. They have a pathway for permanent residence. Why? Because obviously construction and trades continues to be in high demand, and an occupation which is considered extremely critical with the housing crisis. So of course, now let's talk about the PNPs, right? So the title of today's video, the PNPs are pretty much closing doors, not because they want to close doors, but because of the overwhelming demand and supply situation. Extremely high demand, extremely restricted supply. So obviously what's going to happen, the doors are going to close sooner than you would have thought. Alberta it didn't start with Alberta. Actually, it started with Prince Edward Islands earlier this year in the month of February, when they decided that they're going to reduce their intake themselves. They said, okay, our annual quota, we are going to reduce it by 25%. And of the remaining 75%, we are going to restrict it to certain occupations only, probably in healthcare, childcare, trades, construction, and those categories. Then came Alberta. Alberta suddenly announced, hey, we are going to pause our draws. We're going to pause our intake for the opportunity system, Alberta Opportunity, AOS, Alberta Opportunity. Yes, we're going to restrict those draws. But again, Alberta then came, they reopened their program. But now again the change, because when they reopened, they said, okay, so this is sometimes, I do not know why these provinces don't learn from mistakes of other provinces. Previously, also, some provinces would conduct these draws, as in they would announce one particular day. Everybody would jump on into the program and systems would get jammed. People would complain. Nobody was able to submit, etc., etc. Things would go all out of hand. But for some reason, Alberta still decided to go the same way. And they said, okay, we will do one intake per month, 1 day for the intake. And then, we're going to select the people who are able to submit. I'm not sure what they were thinking is going to happen, but exactly that's what happened. Was that thousands, like in the Alberta Opportunity stream, you had like 18,000 people waiting to submit their applications, and the intake was only for 430. Look at the mismatch. Of course, the systems were jammed. They had a lot of technical glitches, blah, blah, blah. So to cut a long story short, now they have come up and said, okay, we are no longer going to no longer going to go with the intake system. Instead, and this is what I said in the month of April as well, if you go back and watch the video, that at some point of time, Alberta is going to come up with the points-based system, because they just have too many people. They have a lot of people. Now, I'm not going to get into the use and abuse, manipulate and corrupt. I'm not going to get into that. That's a different debate altogether. But Alberta has had a lot of people. Alberta has been actively promoting and saying, okay, guys, you want to come to Alberta, come to Alberta. There was actually a whole campaign, come to Alberta. But now they are bearing the brunt of it, because Calgary has become extremely, extremely expensive. The cost of housing has gone up. You can't find rentals easily. And of course, with all this come to Alberta campaign, they had a lot of international students, they had a lot of foreign workers, they had a lot of LMIAs, of course. And now the Alberta opportunity stream is bursting at the brims. And therefore, they have now switched to the expression of interest system starting from the end, I think end of September onwards. So therefore, no more intakes in August, no more intakes in September. And they would then, so how the expression of system, for people who do not understand, express entry is expression of interest system, right? So basically, you create your account in the pool, you get a score, and then they conduct a draw. The highest scoring profiles will get invited. Everybody else is disappointed and continue to wait. So all those people who spent all the time studying in Alberta, waiting for the opportunity stream, working in Alberta with the LMIAs, waiting for the opportunity stream. Now, you guys, once they announce their point system, because that is what will define how much you can score, you will have to buck up. You will have to make sure that you are on the higher side of the scoring factors. Obviously, at the end of the day, the scoring factors cannot be too out of the box. It will have to do with I don't think they will go with the age, because opportunity stream never had an age component, or the accelerated tech pathway never had the age component. So I don't think age component is going to be there, but expect for sure work experience will give you points. Education will give you points. Where you have studied, where you have worked will give you points. Any additional connections to the province, that should give you points. Geography within Alberta, the further away you are, the more points you will get. So please take all of these into consideration. And of course, your language skills scores will also matter. So if you have that chance even now, make sure you book your exams and get that done. Now, what other okay, Northwest Territories paused, Yukon paused. Again, you see, now nobody was willing to go to Northwest Territories or Yukon earlier. I mean, because the living conditions are quite harsh. The weather is quite harsh. And if you thought Toronto was difficult, Toronto was difficult to live in because of the cold weather. You can imagine Yukon and you can imagine Northwest Territories. But even there, now with all the PNPs and all the PR pathways becoming so difficult, people were willing to go there. People were willing to go and live there, reside there, work there. And the result was that Yukon, they finally realized that they have too many people who are making their applications for PNPs. They had to close down. They had to pause the program for this year. By May itself, Northwest Territories followed soon after. They closed their program, or they paused their program in June, I think June or July. But again, they didn't have too many quotas anyways. I think about 300, 400 is the total number of quotas for these provinces, because not too many people were going there. And of course, the population density is how these quotas are allotted. And therefore, their PNPs were paused. And as you can imagine, this is the demand and supply. As I said, Prince Edward Islands, I already told you about. New Brunswick, again, another interesting one. New Brunswick, also a very popular stream. Why? Because the programs are very simple. First of all, point system was not really bothering anybody. You had, with express entry, with the skilled worker, you just needed a job offer, right? You work there, you have 1 year of experience, you work there, or you have 6 months of work experience, you're working there, you get a job offer, bang, you can get into the skilled worker stream. But they announced that they were going to pause their intake with the skilled workers in, I think, May this year. And soon, in August this year, they have now, actually 16th of August, just last week, they have announced that they're going to pause the intake in the express entry stream as well. New Brunswick, great program, very nice program. No, if you were ever thinking of any other PNP programs, New Brunswick was always on top of my list when I would recommend. Why? Because even if you have completed 1 year of program in New Brunswick, you were eligible under the student connection stream. Of course, if you also have an express entry profile. That's simple. You've completed your program, even 1 year program, you are eligible in student connection stream. You have a job offer and you are working in New Brunswick, you are eligible in the employer connection stream, provided you have 1 year of work experience in the same stream previously, you have an express entry profile. But all that is doable, right? That's all you needed. Okay, no draws, nothing. You are eligible, you apply. And obviously, what would you think would happen, right? So much of demand right now, with so much of overwhelming the way the things are going. So had to happen, absolutely. Nova Scotia, I don't have Nova Scotia here. How is that possible? Nova Scotia has paused. Wow. For some reason, Nova Scotia is missing on my list. Nova Scotia also paused their intake of the accommodation and food and services. They also stopped the similar streams for the AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program, from Nova Scotia for these food and services. So that was a bit of a whammy there. Quebec is the government plans to introduce a bill this fall that could limit the number of international students that are coming into the province. So you have PALs already, provincial attestation letters. Now Quebec is also, now in addition to that, you also needed a CSQ for Quebec, in case you did not know. But apparently they now need to restrict, they want to restrict the number of international students coming into the province. So starting from this fall, you might be able to, you can look forward to that happening. Additionally, starting 3rd of September, the approval of new temporary foreign worker. Now, this is a LMIA base, so I'm going to talk to you in a bit. This was not supposed to be here, but this is something totally different. Quebec has also set new limits on the family reunification application. So family reunification application comes under spousal sponsorships, etc., right? Those will also be restricted. I haven't got the complete details for that one, so let's take a look at it when it comes. Now, there is an ongoing discussion as far as British Columbia is concerned. Now, I know British Columbia Health Authority Stream is a great program. Now, British Columbia Health Authority Stream basically required you to be working with Government Health Authority of British Columbia. That's all that was required. You working. What you work, are you working as, in which position you're working did not matter. Whether you're working in admin, whether you're working as a doctor, whether you're working as a nurse, whether you're working as a lab technician, it didn't matter. As long as you were working with the Government Health Authority, so you were eligible under the Health Authority stream, and people made hay, right? And that's the reason why you were seeing smaller number of invitations coming from BCPNP, because they have made so many sub-streams of their programs that obviously, they have to, at the end of the day, they only have so many quotas, right, to give out. And if there were so many other people applying, then the number of invitations had to restrict. So Health Authority stream, because everybody could apply, obviously you can imagine what the demand would look like there. So now the talks, this hasn't been announced, and probably this is the first time you're hearing here, is that some of the government health authorities have now started restricting giving out documentation. Of course, you need documentation to apply, right? The employer form kind of a documentation, the employer job offer, etc., etc. So the health authorities themselves, the HR departments, have started restricting the documentation to non-direct health practitioners. So if you are not a nurse or a doctor, if you're an admin staff and you ask for these documents, then as of right now, they're not giving out. And they're telling you very clearly that there is a discussion ongoing that the BCPNP may restrict these categories, and they have been instructed not to give out these documents. And therefore, in the coming days and weeks, you might hear this news that BCPNP has restricted the health authority stream. So if you are in health authority, and if you are eligible in health authority stream, and if your employer is still giving out those documents, please get them as soon as possible and submit as soon as possible, because very soon this stream may be shutting doors as well. Now, also BCPNP starting in January of 2025 will be revamping their international postgraduate stream. So earlier, if you have completed your postgraduate in British Columbia under certain specific fields of education from specific institutions, you were eligible to apply for nomination right off the bat, no problem. But starting January, they will be making a lot of changes to that. Now you will need a job offer, indeterminate or 1 year, depending on what kind of program you complete. And obviously, people who have been studying masters in BCPNP or in British Columbia, only keeping an eye out for the BCPNP, are now going to bear the brunt of this one, because starting Jan, they will not be able to apply without having a job offer. So that creates another big issue. Saskatchewan, it's not on my list, but let's talk about Saskatchewan. What's happening in Saskatchewan? Saskatchewan, they just simply stopped inviting, right? They are not conducting draws under the express entry, under the international skilled worker, under the express entry or the OID streams. You don't see them. Once in a while, you will see a draw, very small number, 30, 40, 80 people, high scores, nothing much happening over there. Reason for that, their other streams has seen a high influx of number of people who have been applying for nominations. Their skilled worker with Saskatchewan work permit or skilled worker with work experience in Saskatchewan, that stream, the hard to find skills pilot, that was earlier paused again because they're reviewing their streams. So Saskatchewan, by and large, is also taking a look at its stream again and saying which ones do we need to make and tighten up. But therefore, they are holding back on their international skilled worker because their other streams, where basically people are already in Saskatchewan, working in Saskatchewan, studied in Saskatchewan, have a job approval letter from an employer in Saskatchewan, that number is growing. And again, as you can imagine, they need to prioritize who will they bring in. People who already have a connection to the province, or people who are outside or may not have a connection to the province. So again, that's another issue. What have I? Manitoba scores are extremely high. Of course, the draws are happening. I think there was a draw. I don't have it here, but there was a draw last week as well. Not last week, a week before that. Manitoba, the draws are continuing. The scores are extremely high, but the processing of all the provinces has slowed down. You can see on most of the provinces. For example, earlier Nova Scotia could give you a nomination within, I don't know, 2 months. As of right now, it's about 6 months. New Brunswick was handing out nominations very quickly. I think they're still pretty fast, but the processing time has increased. Ontario, the processing times have increased. Now, I don't know, some people are asking, what about Ontario? Well, Ontario, to be very honest, is pretty much on, let's see this. Yeah, they are pretty much online. There are no changes to OINP. OINP programs are ongoing. I know what you're saying. Just because they are not conducting a certain draw, you start thinking, oh, OINP is not conducting draws. Somebody is just writing here. What about draws of OINP? Well, Ontario is conducting draws, so I'm not sure what you're asking me, because Ontario absolutely is conducting their draws. There is nothing which is stopped as far as Ontario is concerned. Neither have they announced, neither are there any changes as of right now. Now, what happens is that you, an aspirant, is expecting a certain draw. And that, if it is not happening, you start feeling that everything is stopped. That's not the case, right? Let me just show you. Now, this year, as on your screen, let me make this bigger. Human Capital Priorities has already issued 10,000 invitations or notifications of interest. French Workers Streams has introduced, or rather has been invited 11. They've issued 1196 notifications of interest, and Skill Trade has issued 7,699. Now, these are the notifications of interest. And then let me just scroll down. Where is our, in 2023, they issued 17,502 for the Human Capital Priorities, 1,490 for French Workers, and 7,512 for Skill Trade Stream. So they're pretty much at par, except that there are about 7,000 notifications of interest that are less for the Human Capital Priority Stream. Now, the next question usually is, well, what's happening with the tech draw? Why is Ontario not being issued? I mean, why are they not issuing any tech draw? But then again, they will not issue tech draws every single day. Now, again, let me just sort of, do I have this here? This is for, this is for 2020. Let's look at these draws. Okay, so these are the 2024, and then these are the, I'm going to 2023. In 2023 also, what happened was they did conduct the draws, but it was not happening as frequently as you would have thought. Now, there was a draw on December 14, 2023, tech draw. Okay, bear with me. Then there was a targeted draw on November 30th, but I think this was a different list of occupations. There was a health draw in September. August had a tech draw. So there was no tech draw between August and December. Okay, so there was a big gap there. Earlier than, before this, of course, there was tech draw. So there was one in July, there was one in August, there was one, a couple of them in actually July, couple of them in, there's one in May, there was one in March, but again, March to May, there was a few months, and then May to July, a couple of months, and then July, August, not too much of a gap. But August onwards, there was a big gap until December, they did one more draw. This year, as I said, I'm just going to, scrolling up here, 10,038 have been issued, means they could potentially issue 7,000 or even more, because this year their quotas are higher for this year. Again, no way to say when they will be conducting their next draw, because of course they don't announce their schedule, but it could be a reason for them to reprioritize how many invitations they're going to issue. Mind you, the number of people within the master's graduate stream has gone up. The number of people within the expression of interest streams for the international students, for the employer job offer streams, those have also gone up. Last year, they did not conduct too many draws under the employer job offer stream. This year, they've already conducted 3, I think. International student stream, last year they did not conduct too many draws. This year they've already conducted. So again, the priority has switched a bit into giving more priority to people who are already inside Canada. Maybe this is a collective policy indication. Maybe this is a collective thought of inviting more people who are already inside Canada, rather than, because in human capital priorities, you don't need to be inside. Of course, you can be in Canada as well, but you don't have to be inside Canada. You could be outside Canada as well. And that's where the advantage was for the human capital priority stream. But fingers crossed, at least in my opinion, I think for sure there should be at least, if not more, but at least 1 or 2 draws around the corner for tech draw. Fingers crossed, as I said. And hopefully I will keep you updated as and when that will happen. That's basically it for this weekly update. Like, share, subscribe, and of course, as you can see, we start our live streams with a very short notice. So always subscribing to the channel and clicking on that bell icon to get the notifications is always a good idea, especially if you're interested in getting all these good meaty information firsthand as they happen. And of course, my opinions on those things, sometimes not nice, but sometimes really valuable. But yes, why not? So subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon, and you can have that going for you so that you know exactly when we are coming online next time. Somebody said, what is the future of French draws? In my opinion, the French draws will continue. I don't see anything going wrong as far as French draws are concerned. This year also, they have been quite aggressive with the French draws. And I think in future they will continue. I mean, if you see the targeted the targets of each year, they already have targets announced right until 2026 with an increment under the francophone categories each year on year. So yeah, I don't see that going anywhere at all. So if you are on the fence about French, you should definitely get in there. Before I jump on to the questions, there was something else I wanted to talk to you guys about. Okay, I've forgotten. So I guess we will come to it when we will come to it. Let's see this one. Monica says, my CRS score is 500. Good score. Express entry profile is expiring in September. What should I do to make sure I don't miss the draw? Anticipating that it might drop to 500 soon. Okay, though I am forever hopeful, the anticipation for it to drop to 500 soon, I am not as optimistic as you are. Probably you need to rub off on me for a change. Or your enthusiasm needs to rub off on me in the sense, like, look at the hold on, I'm just going to pull out the this is here you go, CRS distribution, right? Let's increase this a bit. 501 to 600. This is the last pool breakdown as of the 14th of August. 11,000 people in the pool. Now, the last draw here was at 2,000 with the francophone, and I think before that there was a 3,200 invitation as well, right? What was that? 3,200? Yes, 3,200 on the 14th of August and 2,000 with the francophone. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the pool breakdown with the francophone is changing. Here, definitely your 3,200s are gone. But if pool-to-pool comparison is anything to go by, and we have seen each draw how many people come into the pool, then when the next pool breakdown comes with the next draw, you will see the number is going to be pretty much the same. 10, 11,000. This pool is getting replenished very quickly. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say LMIAs and people are buying LMIAs, etc., etc. Again, that's a different debate. I'm not going to get into that today. But because for some reason, people refuse to believe that there are genuine candidates out there who can actually get to that score without buying or falling into this fraudulent traps of buying an LMIA. So people refuse to believe that. And because they refuse to believe that, there is no point of getting into that debate. I'm not saying people don't do it. Of course, I'm sure people out there definitely do it. But the numbers that you are seeing, that the pool getting replenished is high, because if you complete a master's degree, you have 1 year experience outside Canada, you have 1 year work experience inside Canada, you have a good CLB score, you are age 29 and below, you could very easily get to that score, very easily. So the pool is getting replenished. And therefore, with your question back here, What should you do to make sure you don't miss the draw? Well, you don't have to do anything. If you have the only thing you need to do not to miss the draw is to make sure that you have an active express entry profile. That's all you need to do. Because if you have an active express entry profile, your score is 500, you would get invited if the draw is at 500 or below, or whatever that might be. So if your question is, what do you need to do? You don't need to do anything. Just have an active express entry profile. That's it. What else have we got? Nabil says, I received my ITA in the last CEC draw. Thank you so much. IRCC has definitely been listening to your voice. You're making a huge impact. Well, Nabil, thank you so much. I mean, I do not know if IRCC is listening to me in any manner whatsoever, but I will take this. You see, every draw there are thousands of people who obviously get invited, and it's always a joy to see or meet those people or hear from those people who have finally cracked it, because the wait has been very frustrating. It's full of anxiety, full of stress, full of lots and lots of troubles. And I'm sure people, like for example Monica here, I mean, she would tell you that it has been a huge wait, and there are tons of you out there who are also waiting for these draws to happen. So, well, Nabil, congratulations, and I'm glad you got your ITA. Are paid vacation days and paid sick leaves counted as work experience for Ontario's HCM? I do not know what you mean by HCM draw, or is there any limit for number of days? Now, this has always been a gray area. So paid sick leaves, if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't think that's a big problem. But there is some excerpt I have seen, I don't remember where it is, that if you have been sick for a very long period of time, and even though you were paid, means you were not working, so that cannot count as your work experience. It's the same thing with maternity leave. For a lot of companies, they pay for the maternity leave, but the period of maternity leave is not counted as a valid work experience because you were not working. It's as simple as that. Same thing with paid vacation. Now, as long as up to 2 weeks, it's a standard in Canada. 2 weeks is paid vacation is acceptable. Anything more than that would become a discretion of the visa officer. Yeah, but that's pretty much how it goes around this. By mistake, I revoked GC Key account, did recovered EE profile, but not fake work permit extension. Is there any problems with my fake work permit application? How can I see my refusal letter? You can try and link your work permit application to your account as well. Or you can call IRCC and check with them what is the status of that application. Yeah, that's the way to link that application to yours so that you can get it. So what will happen is, when you're trying to link your work permit application, it will ask you to answer certain questions. Now, open your 5710. The information that you entered in 5710, please make sure you enter the same information there as well. And that's how you would go about doing it. Have tech experience from 2018 to 2021. Till which year it will count as valid foreign work experience for both PNP and Express Entry? Okay, so Express Entry is standard. Last 10 years work experience is your work experience, which is counted, which gives you points in Express Entry. Now, PNPs, it differs. It matters. Some provinces will take it for example, it's 2 years limit. There is a 3 years limit. There is a 5-year limit. And there is a 10-year limit, which is standard. So you'll have to see which province you're looking at. And accordingly, with that provinces, go through their eligibility criteria. It will list down very clearly. For example, if you look at the Ontario's Human Capital Priority Stream for the federal skilled worker, your work experience has to be within the last 5 years. Okay. So similarly, other provinces may have a different requirement. AIPP, RNIP, they all have different requirements as to how long back your work experience can be. And yeah, so as long as your work experience is within that range, you're fine. For example, under the category-based draws in Express Entry, your work experience has to be within the last 3 years. Okay, so those criteria always have to be kept in mind. I received an ITA not included Indian experience. Does IRCC raise query for not including Indian or Canadian experience? No, okay, so this is how it is. In your work history, they are only interested in your work history or other your work experiences for which you are claiming points. And they want to see complete documentation for it, because the Express Entry applications are very, very objective. Means there is URPA ministerial instructions. URPA is Immigration Refugee Protection Act. URPA is Immigration Refugee Protection Regulations. And then there are the ministerial instructions which govern the Express Entry. So when a visa officer is assessing your application, they would want to go through all the sections of the law to give you the respective points. So therefore, they would like to see you mentioning it correctly, choosing the correct knock code, providing correct documentation with regards to your work experience. And as long as all of that is intact, then that's all good to go. Now, in your work, in your express entry application, personal history is a different section altogether. Now, all of that personal history will include all activities within the last 10 years, including the work that you are claiming points for. And you must include the work that you are not claiming points for, whether it's your Indian experience or Canadian experience. So IRCC does not raise any concerns as to why you did not include it in work history. So they understand that you're including in your work history those work experiences for which you're claiming points. But please make sure that you disclose all information correctly. You should include your work experience for which you are not claiming points in your personal history. NOC 13201 lead statement has two roles. Can you please advise if we need to cover both the roles in lead statement? Well, actually, lead statement never has two roles. Lead statement usually will have the description. Let me see if I can pick up any knock.es. What knock code is you? 13201. Hold on. Production. Okay, let's push this on the screen. As you can see, this is the lead statement. Okay, and it's not separate. So if you're saying production, so you're talking about the transport logistics coordinator and the, okay, I get you. Sorry, my bad. So in this case, you need to go with only one group. You cannot go with both the groups. So here also they have given you separate for this, separate for this. Depending on which group you fall under, you would have to go through that knock code or that category of within the knock code, and you must match. You don't need to match with both. You can't, right? I mean, that's the reason they have categorized it, or they have subcategorized it under the knock code. Same thing with the lead statement. Here they're talking about production logistics coordinator, and here they're talking about transport logistics coordinator. So you need to match with only one. Of course, you can't match with two. I'm glad we pulled that up, so we didn't have to get that wrong. Okay, Chetan says, I'm on postgraduate work permit, got laid off from my NOC 1 job last month. I still receive my pay and pay slips until 28th of August. I want to apply for spouse open work permit. Can I still apply with my latest salary slips? Yes, if you're getting it, of course. You will still need an employment letter. Employment letter should state your job roles and responsibilities and the fact that you're working. You can actually provide your job offer letter as well. And if you have that, and if you have your most recent pay stubs, then yes, you can apply for your spouse open work permit. What is the strong reason I can give for not including wife? No, that question I cannot answer for you. I cannot tell you why your spouse is not including you in your, not accompanying you in your application. I really cannot answer that question. You have to be able to establish the reason. In most cases, the reason is that you are not accompanying your spouse is not accompanying you because of the points. We know that, but that's never a good idea to give IRCC, because that could be considered as you gaming the system. So your reason has to be justifiable, in the sense, like if you say that ABC is the reason why my spouse is not accompanying. We have seen in some cases IRCC coming back and saying, okay, provide evidence of this A, B, and C. So therefore, you should be aware yourself as to why your spouse is not accompanying you in your application, and go with that. CRS of 480 with spouse added. Any chance for Ontario? Is it okay to create a profile without spouse? So the my score will be 504. I have been on a pool, 1.5 years, PGWP expiring today, August 24th. Oh my God. All right. Can you create another profile? Well, IRCC has been very clear that you should not create multiple profiles. So I can definitely not tell you to create another profile when IRCC is saying you cannot create another profile. What are the chances with 480? The last score of Ontario for STEM category was 491. So therefore, whether 480 gets invited or not, I would be quite skeptical because of the sheer number of people in the pool. You see, and the reason why you have to calculate it like this is a previous draw was at 481 for STEM, and therefore the score could go below that for OINB. And then people kept getting added into the pool, and the 481 score was last year in December. After that, we are now in August. It's been 8 months. And then the last draw with STEM was in April this year, which is at 491. So you can imagine the number of people who will be in the express entry pool right now. with score of 480 plus. And Ontario's draw, if it was to happen, it would happen now, for example, would be with a 490 and below. So yeah, I would be quite skeptical with 480. Again, it all depends on how many number of invitations they issue. For example, if they issue 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 invitations, yes, of course, not only 480, 470s, a big chunk of 470s will also get cleared out. But if they choose to issue smaller number of invitations, then of course 480 looks difficult. 504 with STEM, and if you're eligible with STEM, that would certainly have a much better chance, in my opinion, of course. Human capital priorities application is at dip stage. My IELTS is expiring on 1st September. My new IELTS is this. Is this score good to be updated to CEC? Am I required to update this to Ontario? Oh yeah, this is fine. So if your application to Ontario has already been submitted, and after that your English language scores have expired, and now you have taken the exam again and your new score is lower, all you need to do is update your Express Entry profile. You have no obligation to update Ontario with your new scores. They don't care. They have your scores from your application when you submitted it, and at that point of time they were valid, and that's all they're interested in. If your scores have fallen below that, and now all you need to do is make sure you update your Express Entry profile. I hope that helps. Sorry, Depot, nothing there. Got 3 years of experience as assistant pharmacist with the same employer, but took 5 months loss of pay leave within these years to visit another country. What documentation should I provide to show this if I get an ITA? There are no documentation to show that you took loss of pay. Simply your employer can mention that while your employment is for 3 years, for these 5 months you were not working. And in your work experience, just split it into 2 to show that there was a 5 months period when you did not work. And accordingly also show it in your personal history that these 5 months you were unemployed and under loss of pay. Nova Scotia nominee on the 14th morning. Congratulations. Well done. I saw 600 points, added it. CEC draw happened the same day afternoon. I didn't receive ITA even though I am CEC eligible. Any problem, or is it okay to wait for the next draw? Okay, good question. So what happens is, let me see if I can pull that out. CEC draw. So what happens is, you received your invitation on the morning of the 14th. You got invited. You obviously you added those 600 points, and then you were expecting that you should have also gotten invited in the CEC draw. Now CEC draw ideally should have invited you, but what would have happened is, and this is just an example, okay, this is not the exact one, but this is just an example. Let me just remove this. You see, the date and time of draw is here. All right. Now this is 1511 UTC. Now 1511 UTC would be something like 10 a.m. Canadian time. Okay. Now, though it happens, or though the draw is conducted at this particular time, okay, it is usually updated or it is published on the IRCC website a few hours later. It's not instant. It's not like the draw was conducted and immediately it was published on the IRCC website. Sometimes there is a time difference of even 4 to 6 hours. So it's highly possible that at the time you updated your scores, and by that time the draw had already happened. Okay, and obviously your score was not applicable in that score draw, and therefore you were not included. So all you need to do is, without any worry, just wait for the next draw and you will certainly be invited. Knock B yesterday got knocked. I don't know what you mean by got knocked B. I think you got work. You got a job, I think, in Knock B. Applied spouse open work permit extension separately on July 15 while I was on a part-time job on Knock C. Should I attach my job offer letter by raising web form? So for spouse open work permit, it does not matter whether you are on a Knock B or a Knock C job. As long as, even if you are a part-time, it doesn't matter. So updating IRCC with your new employment documents does not matter. But I know you're stressed out. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked this question. So there is no harm in in sending a new document to IRCC and saying, hey, I've gotten a new job. This is my employment letter. This is my new pay stubs, etc. And you can absolutely use it through the web form. But just to let you know that your Knock C is absolutely fine. Your part-time is absolutely fine. As long as you provided complete documentation the first time, you will be good. Rahul says, I have just received my second semester grade. I'm in non-mandatory co-op term, but haven't secured one yet. Can I keep working part-time until I start co-op, jobber opt out in. I really can't understand what you're saying. I can until I can I work during the period of uncertainty before applying for postgraduate work permit? Okay, so this is how it is. If you haven't opted for your co-op term, okay, and if you haven't opted for a co-op term and you already have your grades or you have your completion letter or your final transcript, then from that date onwards you cannot work until you have applied for your postgraduate work permit, if that's the question you're asking. So you're saying you see a second semester grade. Now we do not know what program were you in. Was it a 1-year program? Was it a 2-year program? I don't know that. You are saying you are in a non-mandatory co-op term. So if you're in a non-mandatory co-op term, do you have a co-op work permit? Is your employer giving you a co-op term? And even if they're giving you a co-op term, are you considered as a continuing student? You're not, right? Because it's a non-mandatory co-op term. Therefore, the idea would be that either you get a co-op work permit and get assigned to a co-op job and then you can start working. If not, then apply for a postgraduate work permit and then you can start working. But if you have your final transcripts and if you have your completion letter, you can no longer work until you apply for your co-op, until you apply for your postgraduate work permit. With 1 year experience in Quebec, remote on closed work permit, can I apply for EE with LMIA from Quebec employer to earn 50 points? Okay, and can I apply to Ontario Tech Draw while living in Quebec? This is a great question, and let me see if I can articulate it well. All right. So the thing is, when you will claim 50 points in your express entry, especially if you're working with a Quebec employer, it is contradictory. Now, when you're applying an express entry, your intention has to be to reside outside Quebec. So if your employment offer letter is very clear that this is a remote job, you don't need to be in Quebec, but this is a remote job and you can be outside Quebec, and your place of residence is outside Quebec at the time you submit your application, then you can make a case for this. Then you can explain, then you can validate and say, listen, this is, though I'm claiming job offer points with an employer which is Quebec based, but I'm living outside Quebec and therefore my intention is to continue to reside outside Quebec. It's a case to be made. The discretion will be with IRCC, because how the visa officer at that point of time interprets it and then applies it is where it will make a big difference. IRCC has been very inconsistent. The officers are extremely inconsistent. Though the rule book is the same, how they understand and interpret that law and that rule is where it varies. And therefore, if I was you, I would still take a chance. Now, so your second question, can I apply to Ontario Tech Draw while living in Quebec? Yes, you can. There is no problem with that. As long as you're able to establish your intention to live outside, to live in Ontario. And at the time of your application also, your intention is established of you living outside Quebec and in Ontario, you will be fine. In my previous work permit applications, I have not mentioned my internal promotions of my current employer, but I'm mentioning all the internal promotion in my PR application. Will this cause an issue? No, it's not an issue. If you are mentioning it in your express entry application, you have the documentation, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Nothing here. Can it? Okay, guys, please do not do super chats. I will not be able to cover all of them, and therefore I request you to not do any more super chats. Okay, let me open this. Where was I? Kenneth. Where is Kenneth? Oh. All right. Could you please go over the new French program announced? I have a relative who speaks French. She finishes in December. A new French program announced on 18th of August. I have no idea which new French program are you referring to. At least I haven't heard of anything. New French program. What kind of French program are we talking about? Oh, you're talking about the, see, you have to give me context. You're talking about the student pathway. Okay, so what that French program is about is that if you are a Francophone, of course, French speaker from one of the 37 countries that have been identified, and you can apply to come to Canada as a student. After you complete your studies, you will have a pathway for PR. That's what the program is in nutshell. The details have yet to be published. So that's what it is about. But if you are a candidate from one of those 37 listed countries, if you apply for a study permit and you get your study permit, and then after that, you will have a pathway for permanent residence. That's what the program is about. No questions. Just want to say thank you. Transferred from temporary foreign worker ICT to PR recently. Got my PR card this week. Your advice was immensely helpful. I am so happy to see this message. Thank you so much. Your appreciation means a world to me, because this is the reason why I keep coming back and doing this every single week. You're very kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And this also shows that you don't need any consultant, any lawyer to do your applications. I've never been the one to say, okay, you have to take somebody's services. As long as you are willing to do your due diligence and just follow the rule book, you will be there. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Sheikh says, I'm in Canada with study permit. I got recently for Jan intake. Can I leave country and come back again in Jan? I came as a visitor and converted to student. Yes, absolutely you can. There is no problem. Monica says, I meant to ask, since my e-profile set to expire in September, what steps should I take to avoid missing the draw due to profile expired? Last CC was 509. Well, the steps to take would be that once your Express Entry profile expires, you create a new one. And once you create a new Express Entry profile, you will again wait till you get invited. There is nothing you can do with your Express Entry profile to sort of, to remain valid. It's valid for 1 year. Within that 1 year, if you get invited, you're good to go. If you don't get invited, then you recreate your Express Entry profile after it expires. That's what you can do with this. Any expectation of in-demand skill? I don't have any expectations in terms of, I do not have any knock-based information from any province as to who will be invited when. Unfortunately, that information is not available with me. Is relieving letter, payslip, bank statement, cash receipt enough to show foreign work experience? In dad's business, I did show the same experience in my initial study permit. So yes, as long as you have a complete reference letter, pay stubs, and salary certificate, you can certainly claim that work experience if it's genuine. No problem with that. You're saying you've already shown the same experience in the study permit, so yes, you're good to go. Do you see CEC draws continuing in the near future, and for how long? How low can the scores drop? Do you see the scores to hover between 500 and 510? Well, I'm the first one to claim that I was wrong. I've been saying this in the beginning of this year that the scores should clear out 500s, but then I made a mistake of being overconfident with IRCC's ability to continue with the consistent draws. So what they did was they put lots of gaps in between. So whenever there have been gaps, the pool has swelled up and the draws have been that much more difficult to come by. So do I expect CEC draws to continue? I do. And that is basically why, the reason for that is because Mark Miller was very straight. And even director of IRCC, who we met in the month of May in Nova Scotia, he also was very categorically straightforward in saying that CEC draws is something that they are looking to continue with. Now, will they have a general draw in between at some point of time? That's a possibility. But CEC draws, as far as the way I look at it, I think it will continue because there is a big push in trying to promote people who are already inside Canada to have a pathway for PR, especially if they have studied and worked in Canada. Obviously, that's the only way you're going to get to that CEC categories. Do I see the scores to hover between 500 and 510? At this point of time, with the pool at 11,000 some people, I think, so for the scores to completely clear out 500 right now, IRCC has to do something really drastic, and that's to conduct some really large, big size draws of 5, 6, 7,000. They've done it in the past. I mean, there is precedence. So, they are absolutely capable of doing it if at all they wish to clear out. So last year, when they had to clear out this big chunks of people in the 490s and 500 plus, they came out and they conducted draws. So they invited about 21,000 people in a span of 14 days. So can they do it again? Yes, absolutely. What would it take to invite 11,000 people? Nothing much, right? 2 back-to-back draws of 6,000 will clear everybody out. But will they do it? Will they not? Is something which you have to wait and see. I for sure would not know if they will. Alberta doesn't let PGWP holders work as apprentice electrician. However, employer gave me an offer. Can I work 6 months and get in trade draws? If you're asking me about express entry, then yes, you can. In express entry, first of all, they don't look at the employer requirements, the employment requirements that is mentioned in the NOC code. However, if it is a requirement that you need to have that license in order to perform the job in the province that you're living in, then even IRCC is going to have an issue with it. So As long as you can establish that as an apprentice you do not need a license or certification, you can go back to your regulatory body. You can check with them. You can ask them to give you some sort of a document, or to say that as long as you're an apprentice, you don't really need a certification. As long as you're working under the supervision of a licensed person, then I think you can get away with this. Gur Siddhak says, my second job towards my 3-year experience is only 2 months, out of which 4 weeks are not 30 hours per week. Can I still consider the remaining 1 month towards my 3-year work experience? I'm under CEC. Yes, you can. With CEC, the beauty of CEC is that you can have any combination of work experience. So different knock codes, as long as they're tier 0, 1, 2, 3, different employers, gaps, permutations and combinations, mixes and matches, all of that are absolutely acceptable and allowed. My knock code is 63201. Butcher applied in CEC, points are 398. When will the draw of agri-food happen? I have no idea when the draw will happen. I'm just hoping and praying that the draws do continue, and hopefully it should happen before your work permit expires. Do I need to inform IRCC on job change after portal 2? The change in job does not make me ineligible. No, you don't need to. There is no requirement. There is no obligation for you to inform IRCC about changes in employment until and unless you received your ITA on the basis that you had a job offer. Okay. Other than that, if you are CEC, your entire eligibility for CEC based on your past work experience, and therefore there is no requirement for you to update IRCC at any stage of your application. I think we did this already. Will my application get impacted? My GC key got revoked. No, your application does not get impacted. It will continue. You should try and link your application to your new account, or contact IRCC to get status update. Can I change my answer for qualified job offer? No points given on the ITA from yes to no in my PR application. Yes, absolutely. You see, in your PR application, after having received the ITA, you can pretty much change anything that you want, right? Including the spelling errors in your name. Okay, you can change almost everything. Just be aware that the conditions and the criteria under which you received your ITA and under which you're submitting your application, they remain the same. Okay, your eligibility remains the same. Your eligibility is there, of course, when you receive it and after you are submitting. But yes, you can make the change. There is no problem. Absolutely. My spouse work permit got rejected twice. Reason: you have not provided sufficient proof that your spouse working. Any suggestions? Well, the suggestion is to reapply. And usually this happens is when you haven't provided employment documents of your spouse with the job letter specifying the roles and responsibilities and 3 pay stubs. That's when you get this kind of refusal. And if you did provide those documents in the first place, then apply for reconsideration. Call IRCC, tell them that you had already applied, you had already provided these documents, raise a web form and request them to reconsider because you did provide the required documents in the first place. Nothing there. Though my friend back to US border, I had a work permit but not US visa, so I went around with him and he got the work permit. Do I need to declare this in my PR application as flag polling? Well, if you did have the US visa and you were allowed entry into the US and then you exited, then nothing to show because it was a travel to the US. My suggestion would be that if you did get denied and if you were also flag polling and you came back and you were also denied entry because of the same reason, then it's always safer to indicate it in your application so that you do not have any complications. Nothing here. Received Saskatchewan. Can I accept after the new IELTS scores? I honestly do not understand the question. If you have received Saskatchewan, I do not know what you mean by can I accept after the new. I'm sorry, but there's just very little information here to answer this. Guys, please do not do super chats. I will not respond to the questions after my time is up. Please do not do super chats. Where did we go? Rachit. I can't see it. Okay, Rachit. Can I give reference letter signed by my manager? I'm primary applicant who got ITA. Can I apply bridge open work permit with my wife? She's on a work permit. I got parental leave for 1 month. Does it needs to be in the Express Center? What, too many things over here. Can I get reference letter signed by my manager? Yes, you can. If it is on a company letterhead, your manager can sign it. There is no problem. Can I apply for bridge open work permit with my wife? Yes, you can. Absolutely no problem. You apply for your bridge open work permit and you apply for your spouse's work permit as accompanying you, as apply for her extension. Make sure you add your employment documents in her work permit application. I submitted their LOE with job description. Yeah, as I said, raise a request for reconsideration and also call IRCC. Yeah, call IRCC and ask them to please put a note so that the officer can take a look at it again. And yes, raise a request for reconsideration. Will the offer letter from current employer work for 50 points? Again, I do not know the context, Sabah, and I'm sorry I cannot answer this question correctly. To get 50 points, either you have to be on a closed work permit. If you are ICT, work for 1 year, and then you get the job offer, and then you apply for you get your 50 points. Or if you're on an open work permit, you need LMIA to get the 50 points. So will the offer letter from the other employer? Again, as I said, I do not know what you mean here. I have work experience in India. However, I'm not sure if I mentioned in the study permit application. What should I do in this case? You can apply for the ATIP notes and apply for the complete file of your study permit. That way you will get the complete file and all the documentation that you submitted in your study permit application. And that way you will be able to identify what you provided and you did not. Guys, please do not do super chat. I will not be able to answer all your questions, and I do not want you to feel that you paid for something and you did not get answer to that. I will not be able to answer. I have only 3 more minutes, and therefore, please do not do super chats. I have AOR, and if I am on closed work permit, can I apply for bridge open work permit now? Yes, absolutely. You can apply for bridge open work permit as long as you have an AOR. Even if your work permit is expiring after 2 years, it does not matter. You can apply for bridge open work permit. Jaydeep, sorry, there's no question here. Nav says, can I add my wife after getting ITA sitting at 508? Yes, you can add your wife after getting ITA, no problem. But bear in mind that since you're already married and you're adding your spouse after ITA, your scores will be recalculated. And once the scores are recalculated and your scores, the new score falls below the drawn score, then your application will be refused. Sorry, Nikita, there's no question. Can I travel to India after receiving ITA? Yes, you can travel to India. There is no problem. You can travel after ITA, before the ITA, after AOR, doesn't matter. If you haven't submitted your application, please make sure to update your updated travel history before submitting your application. My work permit is expiring in August. Score is 496. Would it be okay to wait or any action required? Nope, there is no action required. You can absolutely wait. Unfortunately, there is no other option but to just wait and hope that IRCC conducts a draw sooner than later. BCPNP score is 106. Current draw is at 110. Been at the same score for 5 months. Any chance BCPNP scores will go down? I wish I could answer that question to say whether the scores will go down or not. I don't really know. And as I said, the only reason why the scores continue to be high is because of the lower number of invitations. As we go closer to the end of the year, the number of invitations will remain the same or dwindle down. So if you have any opportunity to improve your scores, I think that should be the way to go. Any OMP skill draw in future, or they are done with the quota for 2024? No, they are not done with the quotas yet. If they were done with the quotas, they would announce it. As far as any other draw, I can't tell you. It depends only on their own discretion whether they will be conducting a new draw or when they will be conducting one. Does the job loss affect CRS after receiving ITA? No, it does not, unless your score claimed 50 points for job offer. Then if you lose that job, then it does impact your CRS. Guys, please don't do super chat. I guess, I've been saying this, but obviously you guys are not ready to listen. So some of you are going to be disappointed today. So I apologize for that in advance. Can I renew my daughter's passport after getting the COPR and before traveling? Yes, you can. There is no problem. Carry both your passports, the old one with the visa on it and the new passport, and there is no problem. You can absolutely renew the passport of your daughter for your daughter, no problem. Nothing here, nothing here. Okay, last question. I'll create express entry profile. I'm on postgraduate work permit. Is it okay if I don't mention my Indian work experience that I mentioned in my study permit, because I don't want to mention that experience? So you don't have to mention any work experience in your work history for which you don't wish to claim points. Okay, it's as simple as that. If you're not claiming points, then you do not need to show it in the work history. What you will do is, once you receive your ITA, then you will have a personal history section. That is where all your work experiences for which you did not claim points for will go. And it does not matter at all. But please make sure you disclose everything. You disclose all work experiences so that it is not a problem. Okay, I hope that helps. Everybody, thank you so much for joining in. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's always nice to see you guys joining in such large numbers. Thank you so much. And we shall do this again. Hey, just on a very short note, next week, I would like you all to join in, I think on Sunday morning. Next week, Sunday morning, let's see what's the date. Hold on. Sunday would be first. Would it be first? Yes, 30th, 31st. 1st of September. Join in on 1st of September. Why? Because I have a couple of guests with me. And it would be a great insight for you guys to sort of understand how somebody who has immigrated to Canada from the US, techie, had a tech startup and did phenomenally well with that. Will be a great insight as to why would somebody want to leave US, come to Canada, and then even if they have an opportunity to go back to the US, still wanting to choose to live in Canada and continue their business from here. So that should be a good one to join in with. Sunday morning, okay, that would be a Sunday morning, 1st of September. Thank you so much for joining in. I shall see you again. Until then, stay forever hopeful and take care.